Good afternoon and welcome back to My Harlem Portraits, the show that aims at shedding the light on a fundamental contribution that African Americans gave to the building of this country and on Black excellence. And to represent Black excellence, our special guest today is Grammy, Tony, Drama League, and OCC Awards nominated for her role as the Queen Diana Ross in Broadway's Motown the Musical. We have the fabulous Valisia LeKae with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Ria. Thank you for that introduction as well.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are playing in the show we are going to talk about and that our viewers saw a clip of just before we started the interview. Mm-hmm. You're playing the legendary LaVern BAKER in Rock and Roll Man, which is the winner of the 2019 Broadway World Berkshires Award for Best Musical. It opened on June 21st in New York with its New York premiere and is currently playing at New World Stages. This is an amazing, sensational musical with a book by Gary Kupper, Larry Marshak, and Rose Caiola. It's directed by Tony Awards nominee Randal Myler, choreographed by Stephanie Klemons, and the choreography is fantastic, and features original music and lyrics by Gary Kupper, as well as the amazing, timeless rock and roll classics by legends such as Little Richard, Chuck Berry, LaVern BAKER, Buddy Holly, and so on and so on. So when I saw it, I was jumping on the seat. Your show is amazing and your interpretation is amazing.
Thank you.
So congratulations for that. But let's situate for those who don't know, because for example, I didn't know who Rock and Roll Man was. I never heard of him. Let's situate it in the historical context in which this true story, because it's a true story, develops. We are in the segregated 60s. And who is Alan Freed, the Rock and Roll Man?
Well, Alan Freed, born in Cleveland, Ohio, was a local DJ who took a risk at playing African-American music on the radio stations when it wasn't allowed. He was a rebel rouser. He was an ally and an advocate to wanting to integrate audiences so that everyone could experience this fabulous music. And so we have a show where we take place on the last day of Alan Freed's life, where he come across the cast of these characters, many to which you have named, to recalling the times to which he brought and helped ushered in rock and roll music with these artists as well.
And the show at a certain point, when he started listening to this music and he's so captivated by it that he has to play it on his radio.
Absolutely.
As you said, it wasn't allowed. White station could only play white music. And Black music was relegated to Black stations. But no, everybody has to listen to this music. And so he convinces one of his friends. Tell us about that.
Oh, he sort of tricks one of his friends to, well, one friend calls out sick. He gets the opportunity to play, to sub in for him. And, you know, it was thought that it could be his destiny that he can sort of take this risk to play this music on the radio station. You know, music is a universal language. And that was something so compelling about this music to Alan Freed that it really encapsulated his soul. It really bled through his bloodline. It was everything that he needed at the moment in his life. And music will do that to you. Music will get you to stand up, to shout, to like you wanted to in the audience, to scream, hoot and holler, to clap. It makes you do all of those things. And Alan really wanted to share that with the rest of the world. And so he really was adamant about people experiencing this sound, the feeling, the soul and the heart of this music.
And he did it very well, because then we see him in a record store of his friend, where his friends start selling these records, and all these white kids, and he's playing it, and all these white kids come and dance like crazy and buy it. So tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah, without giving it away too
Yeah.
much. I think that was the thing. You know, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and my mother would tell me stories about how the local record shop was sort of like the secondary church of the community. You could go in, you could put a record on the record player, and you could let loose. There were no color barriers when it came to listening to the music. The music, the records itself, you know, it never said, "Are you black or white?" It just said, yeah. Are you a human soul wanting to experience it?" And sort of like in our story, this record shop is sort of a safe haven for the kids to come here, listen to the music, and let out all that fabulous energy, and not think about the fact that one was black or white, but think about the fact that we were both humans wanting to enjoy something really, really special.
And it was fantastic. So he not only he produced, he started to play this music on the radio, but he also started to produce the music with different concerts all over the US from coast to coast. And for the first time in the history, black and white artists were performing together on a stage for audiences which were mixed audiences. And before it wasn't like that.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the early pioneers to do that, to take that sort of opportunity to say, hey, not only can we have this music in the record shops, we can bring this music live to the stage. So so that the kids who were dying to see these performers could come and not just hear the music, but like feel it, dance to it, and have this moment in history to say that I was there when I saw that performer. And so, yeah, he was one of the early pioneers to sort of produce it to the masses and take it across the country from Cleveland to New York.
And he took incredible risks to do that.
Absolutely.
It wasn't done.
So. Absolutely. It wasn't done. And, you know, and the Black artists took risk as well, because during that time, you know, singing for Black artists was not just a performance. It was a way of life. It was a way of getting through the day-to-day trials and tribulations of segregation and racism. So artists typically use their lives to speak to the masses. And so leaving their houses and going to white areas was a risk for Black artists. You know, that wasn't a small feat for them. So they both took risk in order to get this music to the population. And it paid off big time.
Big times. We have rock and roll.
We got rock and roll.
All kinds of white artists copied that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we touch on that in the show. We don't let them off easy, for sure.
It is that's another reason why I really love this show, is because it's the most incredible entertainment show that I've seen right now. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
Quality of the music, the dancing, the costume, the choreography, everything is beautiful. And on top of it, it has a very important social message, especially now.
And I think that is a nod to the producers. You know, we were very fortunate to have Rose Caiola, not just as a writer, but also a producer. We have the Guttermans, Jay and Cindy, as
I know that.
Yes, they're wonderful. And they're artists, and they're artists in their own retrospect, but they're also advocates for creating spaces for artists to play at a big scale. And what they did, they're very intentional with what they did, having it in that intimate space so that you can feel it, but knowing that we have big plans for this show. We obviously want to take this show to the masses, touring it across the country, but as well as bringing it to Broadway. And so they wasted no expense of giving you high quality performances through each of the actors and actresses that are playing, through the musicians that we have on the stage, through the sets, through the costumes. It's all there. It's all there and ready for everyone to experience it. And so, you know, it's one of those things where we were very fortunate to have Rose Caiola and Jay and Cindy Gutterman in our corner, cheering us on along the way.
So say hi to Jay and Cindy.
I will.
I love them. So as we were saying, this is a stellar cast. You have starring Tony Award nominee Konstantin Maroulis, who plays Alan Freed, Emmy Award winner Joe Pantoliano as Leo Mintz. He plays two roles, Leo Mintz and Maurice Levy. And it features Bob Ari as Edgar Hoover and the incredible Roderick Covington as Little Richard. He was like, I thought I was looking at Little Richard. I thought that was Little Richard on stage.
Yes, he's fantastic. I don't even call him Roderick anymore. I just call him Richard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's incredible. And you as LaVern BAKER. So LaVern BAKER was an incredible figure. Tell us about who she was, what was her role in this incredible, fascinating period, and how did you feel about being asked to be her?
Well, LaVern BAKER was this dynamic, awesome, resilient performer. She was one of the second solo women who was still alive to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991. After Aretha Franklin, she was inducted with Ike and Tina Turner the same year. But what LaVern represents is not only herself as an entity that sort of ushered in rock and roll, because she knew how to sing everything, basically jazz, R&B, gospel, all of these things to which she well, thank you. To which she helped create and fuse this sort of rock and roll era, but she also represent the women of rock and roll. You know, there were so many women that came before her, the Bessie Smiths, the Etta James, the Ma Rainey's, like all of these fabulous women that we don't get to hit in this story, but we also get to like sort of, that LaVern sort of embodies. And so we see her featured throughout the show. But one of the songs she really sings at the end is a song that was written by Ma Rainey, which was a song written back in 1925. So, you know, LaVern really lets us realize that women had a role in this era of rock and roll. Black women had a role in this era of rock and roll. And she was resilient up until the time that she died. You know, she died at age 67. She had both of her legs amputated, but she continued to perform. You know, one of the things that struck me about her is that she after having her legs amputated, she said, you know, I may not have my legs, I may not have my mind, you know, but I have my spirit and my soul, and I can still sing. And any woman who has that level of tenacity, who has that veracity, that resilience, I am honored to be able to step into that space and just allow the world to experience just even a little bit of who she was.
And you do it in a fabulous way. Fabulous way. I love this. I love this. She also, another thing that I didn't know is that between 55 and 65, 20 of her songs made the R&B chart. And over the years, Elvis Presley recorded 8 of her songs.
Yeah, that's how magnificent she was, you know. And earlier on in her career, you know, she recorded Tweedledee, and then Georgia Gibbs turned around and recorded it. I think with Tweedledee it went to number 4, but with Georgia Gibbs it went to number 1. And so when LaVern recognized what was happening, she wrote to her congressman and said, you know, these white artists are taking the opportunity to sing our songs, and we're not getting residuals from it. We're not getting anything from that play, to which they now have made very popular in their own right, but we are the ones who originated this music. And so what are we going to do about it? So she was an advocate for artists having rights. And a lot of people don't realize that she was one of the early people to do so and speak up about it. And so, yeah, she had a ton of hits. And because of that voice, you can't walk away from that voice and not feel something and not want to sort of not emulate it, but sort of take a little bit of her with you. And Elvis did his own version of CC Rider and so many of her other hits as well. But, you know, she was that girl. She really was that person who had that voice and could make you feel everything and more.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for this. So I want to go back to the show itself and the specific time frame that you already mentioned. It is very ingenious what the writers did, because it takes place, as you said, in the last day of Alan Freed's life.
Mm-hmm.
During this day, he has this feverish dream. And he dreams that he's in a courthouse and his defense lawyer is Little Richard. And the prosecutor is J. Edgar Hoover.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And his reputation and his legacy and his life are on trial.
Absolutely.
So what was your reaction when you first read the script?
Well, when I first heard about it, I did my research on LaVern, and I also read Alan Freed's book. And just to know that, there are certain forces in the world that will do anything and everything to keep people from coming together united. And it's particularly when it's people of other races, particularly of that time. People wanted segregation. They didn't want us to go to school together. They didn't want us to go to church together. We couldn't sit in the restaurants together. We couldn't go through the front door. And so anytime you had something that was a catalyst to change, everybody in power who isn't an advocate for equality is going to come against you. And so I thought it was very interesting how the writers sort of choreographed the way they wanted to tell this story, because it wasn't heavy. No. There was plenty of humor. There was plenty of truth telling, and there wasn't a whacking of over the head, but there was ways that they seamlessly put it in there so that you wouldn't forget it. You know what I mean? Just enough to crack your soul to realize that times are happening over again. There are certain things that we're experiencing in this country where rights right now, exactly, where rights are being overturned slowly but surely. And so what this musical is reminding us is that we have the power to make a change. And it only takes one person, whether you're Black, white, Latino, Native American, it doesn't matter. Use your voice, use the influences that you have around you, come together to create a powerful movement. And that's what Alan Freed and these African-American artists did during their time. They took the risk, it paid off, and now we have not just rock and roll, we have the memory and the legacy of these artists to continue to propel us forward to do what we need to do in times like today.
Yeah, as example, they didn't lay down, and
absolutely
they persevered, and they won.
Yes, they did. Yes,
and we are really in terrible times because we have been set back 50 years.
Absolutely.
As 2 or 3 court decisions.
Absolutely. But I'm empowered by things like that. You know what I mean? Like when I see change happening like that, it empowers me even more to want to get out there, use my voice in a way that will educate people, that will create change. Things are going to happen. I come from ancestral roots from slaves. Like they were powerful people. And so when I look back on the times, when I think about my grandparents and everything that they did and how they conquered the times, this is a time for us to not sit back and relax. This is a time for us to fight. And so we have work to do. That's how I see it. We have absolutely a lot of work to do, and we can do it.
Lots of work to do. And what you're saying is exactly what I always say. One reason why I do this show is this.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to know what's going on in this country. I want people to understand that the idea they have of Black people, especially in white America, but also in Europe, because in Europe, you don't get all the news that you get here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to understand the excellence is in your part of a soul. And I think it comes from what you said, that the people who made it over here, they had a journey that was hell. In the bottom of the galleys, all chained together with sicknesses and things like that. They made it. They made it because they were physically, mentally strong. Otherwise, they couldn't have made it. So you are the descendant of those strong people.
Absolutely. I am the descendant of hope, is what I am. And that's what they represented. And so when I think about music like this and the storytelling and the opportunity to be able to not just sing this music, but to be able to carry on LaVern's legacy, to be able to carry on Little Richard's legacy, Bo Diddley, and all of these wonderful artists, like it's a privilege to be able to do that, because I know how hard they fought for me to just even stand on the stage, to come through the front door of the theater. So yeah, I am encouraged by the fact that, my ancestors paved the way for me, and I look forward to paving the way for those who come after me.
Thank you. So as we said before, in 2013, 2014, you were nominated for a Grammy, Tony, Drama League, and OCC Awards for your role as Diana Ross in Motown the Musical. How did you feel playing the Queen, who at 79 is still gracing the stages and commanding standing ovations? Were you intimidated? Did she come to see your show?
I wasn't intimidated because I felt like I had experienced aspect of her life throughout my lifetime. You know, I grew up and I was raised, you know, by my grandmother. And I just remember collecting vintage clothing from my grandmother and my mother over the years. My mother did a wonderful job in allowing me to experience music at a very young age. She was a natural born dancer who couldn't sing, but she had a physicality about herself that was unbelievable. And she would always take me to the record shops and let me, you know, play music. My grandfather had a barber shop. He'd allow me to pick the songs in the jukebox. And so I was always growing up with the music of Motown. It was just sort of one of those things that was sort of the soundtrack of my life. And anytime that I performed, whether it was I performed at Dollywood when I was in college, I performed at Liberty Land, which is a local theme park in Memphis. At any time there was, you know, me being the only Black girl in the show, I was always asked to play, not play, but sing her songs. Yeah. And so it just felt very familiar to me. It felt like home to me. And so when I heard about the show happening, I remember being on the corner and just emailing my agents like, you know, you have to like submit me for this, right? Like I already have the clothes and the wigs and all of the things.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Like at any moment, like, you know, just put me in the room. And so it was a very comforting place for me. It wasn't like an out of body experience. It felt very right, felt very authentic. And the one thing that she and I have in common is love. You know, the love of our people, yes, the love of the music, the love of ourselves and wanting to share it and give it. And that was an easy place for me to tap into. And I knew that if I would stay true to the character of who she is in real life, her level of resilience, her level of optimism, that I would be able to tell the story truthfully and audience would be able to feel that. And so it was just a real blessing for me to have that journey in my life.
Wonderful. And I saw that too, Annie, those off the chart. It was when I just moved back to New York, 2013, 2014. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
Thank you.
Now we're going on to a serious thing. And because you weren't on the show for too long, just a few months, because you had to leave in December 2013 to be treated after a diagnosis of ovarian cancer.
Yeah, I originated the role. So we started actually working on Motown in 2011.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had been doing workshops and readings up for a few years. And then I left the show fully in November of 2013 because I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. It was a very unexpected diagnosis for me. I had no occurrences of ovarian cancer or breast cancer in my immediate family. But what was the life-saving measure for me, it was that I was very adamant about always seeing my gynecologist, having my pap smear every year, having my checkups. And so I remember going in for having a checkup and my gynecologist at the time telling me that I had an ovarian cyst. And, you know, 95% of the time they're benign. But you know, in my case, I was in the 5th percentile. And so when the pathology report came back for that, it you know, I was diagnosed with clear cell carcinoma, which is ovarian cancer. And so I needed to step away from the show and focus on my life and what that was going to be like for me for the next several years.
And you came out triumphant from that.
I came out triumphant from that. And I understand that not a lot of people make it through their diagnosis, but going through the experience And just fighting to live every day is also a triumph. I am in remission 9 years. And so my job is to speak about women's health, to advocate for ovarian cancer research, and just to let people know that, you know, advocating for yourself with your doctors, educating yourself about your own body, speaking up about things that you are experiencing allows you to be in a position to if you are diagnosed with cancer, to get it early.
Yeah.
And to get the treatment, because, you know, I was given a 50-50 chance at life.
Wow.
And I was going to use all 50% that I had in me of living to get to the other side. And so, you know, I was really grateful that I caught it early and had the right team of doctors who were willing to listen to me and work with me in order to make me a healthier and stronger.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Very happy you did that. And you were also named spokesperson for the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition in February 2014. So you have been talking about this very often, right?
Absolutely. I've been now advocating. I mean, I was diagnosed, I think, on December 2nd. I was sitting down with Diana Tyler on CBS December 3rd. So once I realized that I was diagnosed, once I realized that I was going to ovarian cancer websites and not really seeing anyone who looked like me, my age, that I wasn't represented in the space, it was very important for me to advocate in a way that that reach young African American women and women of color, to let them know that, you know, cancer doesn't discriminate. You don't have to be 50 and white in order to get ovarian cancer. It can touch you at any stage of your life. I've met someone as young as 13 with ovarian cancer. And so I've been spending the last 9 years of my life advocating in this space, making sure that organizations also see across color lines and not just their communities who are mostly white and Caucasian, but making sure that they are communicating with other races as well, to bring together forth this education that is so powerfully needed in order for us to advocate for ourselves in our doctor's offices. And so I feel a shift has happened, because now when I go to websites, I'm seeing people who look like me and women of all ages and all races. And so I think the work is paying off.
Congratulations. Wonderful. And we are to the end now. So I'm going to ask you the last thing. I was going to talk about your TV shows and so on. The Broadway, you did the Free Penny Opera, 110 in the Shade, Ragtime, Book of Mormons, and on television, among others, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And I love that show. I watched the whole episode. I don't know how many times. I love it. I love it. I love it. But we don't have time, so I'm going to ask you. You will be making your Carnegie Hall debut in March 15, 2024.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, you know, I can't hear the word Carnegie Hall and not get emotional now, because it really wasn't one of those things on my bucket list. I didn't come from a prestigious college of music. I couldn't afford singing lessons as a little girl. I couldn't afford dance lessons as a little girl. I could afford to go to church and hear the music of those Black women and men sing righteously and how it affected me. And to know that, you know, last year I got a call from my agent saying that I was going to be making my Carnegie Hall debut. It just was not something that I could have ever dreamed of for myself. Not because I, you know, didn't want it. It's just because I didn't have the pedigree. At least I thought I didn't have the Juilliard pedigree. And so I'm not only going to be able to perform at Carnegie Hall, but I'm going to be able to perform with the New York Pops, to which I've never done, as well as to bring the music of Motown to those audiences. And one of the things that really excites me about performing at Carnegie Hall next year is that my grandfather will be 92, my grandmother will be 91. And just the thought of being able to walk into that space with my grandmother, who were sharecroppers, who picked cotton at the ages of 3 and 4, who didn't have a bathroom on the inside, had to walk a couple of 100 feet in order to just use the restroom, who had to go down to the well to get the water to bring into their houses. My grandfather, the same for him. We're going into a space that we weren't necessarily welcome over 100 years ago in this sort of capacity. And now their granddaughter gets to perform.
It's the star of the show.
is to perform on that stage. So I always get emotional because it's such a blessing.
I totally, you know, that's why I wanted to ask you that question.
Yeah.
Because being a Carnegie Hall it's going to be amazing. I do not want to miss that.
Okay? You don't.
Keep me on your mailing list here.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
I can't miss that show. So thank you so much. We are at the end of this beautiful conversation. Congratulations.
Thank you so. Thank you so. And please
imagine how you're gonna be that night.
I know. I'm trying to get out all the tears. I have months to get the tears out. But audiences don't have to wait to experience not only my performance, but Little Richard and all the others. They can come to Rock and Roll Man Musical right now. Tickets are on sale right now. Go to rockandrollmanthemusical.com. We are there 8 shows a week, every day but Tuesday, 2 shows on Saturdays, 2 shows on Wednesday. We are ready for you. We are ready to rock and roll your world.
And until when is it running?
It is we have just been extended to November, but you know, audiences get those tickets. We'd love to stick around forever for you.
You got to come, you got to go see the show. This is the most incredible show. And it's gonna be on Broadway, yes. And you will have to pay 3 times as much. Okay.
Thank you so much
for this interview. Thank you so much for your time and congratulations. And I'll be seeing it again on the 12th.
Please stop by and say hello.
I will ask Maria. Okay.
Thank you, Miss Maria. Thank you so much.